are you? And where are you going? What do you want?
Hello and welcome to People Making Money. I'm your host, Kevin Bemmel, and I'm here every Wednesday at 10 a.m. Pacific time to talk about job hunting, starting and running a business, and building wealth. So the whole financial side of life. And today I'm pleased to have as my guest Deric Keller. So for those of you who watch Trust and Estates Weekly, Deric was a guest on that show, I think a few months ago now. He talked about exit strategies for businesses within the probate and trust administration realm. And today we're going to go a little bit bigger and broader. This day after Veterans Day, Deric and I know each other through a business group for veterans, and Deric is military veteran, and so we're going to get to know a little bit more about him, and he's going to talk about how excellence is never an accident. This is a topic that in military circles really looms large, I think is the best way to put it. So Deric, thanks for coming on People Making Money.
Oh, thanks. Thanks for having me, Kevin. It's always a pleasure to sit and chat with you for sure.
Good deal. So, before we get into your topic, and since it is we're doing the show here on November 12th, the day after Veterans Day, there were lots of celebrations yesterday. I know I was in a business meeting with some of my colleagues, none of whom had ever been in the military, and was regaling them with stories of my exploits. And one of them said to me, she said, this is completely different than anything I've ever heard about the military. Because I was telling her about the sort of kooky, fun things that, there's this training thing called Buttercup, where it's a training for what happens if a ship is sinking, basically, and you're in this tank and the water's filling up and you have to stop the water, and kind of crazy. So she's like, the military, she says my daughter talked about going to the military, and we told her, no, you can't do that, because all they ever knew was what was on movies. So right. Talk to us at least a little bit about your experiences, both I guess starting in the military and then into your civilian career, so people can get a sense of where your perspective on building excellence, where that really, from where that really comes.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that it was more born from people telling me that I couldn't do something, which I think that happens for a lot of us, right? Mm-hmm. Is people saying that you can't, and then so you want to prove them wrong. And gosh, so I guess I joined the Marine Corps because I felt like they were the best. I felt like they were the best dressed. I felt like they had the most discipline. I felt like they were the first to fight. They were everything that I thought that it should be if you were going to be in the military, if that makes sense.
Yeah, for sure.
So
I'm a Navy guy. You'll get no argument from me on any of those. But I served a little over 3 years with the Marine Corps. So
yeah. So I mean, it's all about this, this different level of operating when you're in the Marine Corps and holding this different standard. And I think that going in, I mean, I'll share a funny story just so you guys, veterans. I guess the civilian life probably has no idea about, which is field day, right? Thursdays were field day in the Marine Corps, where they would pull everything out onto the catwalk, and you'd have to bleach down your room, make sure everything, whether it was simple green or bleach, you were in there just cleaning the heck out of it. And I was lucky enough when I first got to the fleet, I went with 3-8, and I was lucky enough to get stuck in a sergeant's room. Kevin, you probably know how that went. I was a boot in a sergeant's room, who normally sergeants have their own room. Excuse me. So I was voluntold to be the field day guy. I had to clean our room. So I was, a young PFC carrying all the stuff out onto the catwalk, and then he strapped green scratchy pads to my hands and my knees and had me do figure eights around the room, clean. So something you definitely won't see on the movies, but it was imperative to my building, becoming a Marine, right, and being who I had to be to ultimately help me where I am now. Because I can tell you, I'm not afraid to get down on the floor and clean the floor with some green scratchy pads. So sometimes that's what it takes in business and in life, right? Is getting down in the business that nobody really wants to get down into, right? And that term, excellence is never an accident, it comes from an event that I do every year. And it's really building on excellence and making that decision to be somebody else and be that 1%, be that person who's changing the way that they operate, right? Because if you continue to operate the same way that you're operating, you're gonna get the same thing, right? And people don't tend to understand that. They think that I can keep doing the same thing and magically something else is going to appear. And right. So throughout life, like we have to change the way that we operate. We have to change the way that we show up. We have to do things different, right? And I mean, it comes down to our simple everyday habits. Like, I mean, I hate to say it because everybody talks about it so much, but the screen time on your phone, how much time are you spending on your phone scrolling and at social media and doing all them things, right? I was actually having a conversation with my son last night. He was saying, Dad, when I graduate school, I wanna go be a salesperson. I don't need any more school. I hate school. I'm going to go be a salesperson. I said, that's great, but you want to go be a salesperson? That's where I started. I was in sales. I did that. But if you really want to be a salesperson and you really want to be successful, guess what? Education never stops. You got to keep learning. You got to keep doing. You got to step outside of what everybody else is doing. And he goes, well, what do you mean, Dad? I said, all that time that you spend on YouTube watching, all these gamers and figuring out how to do things on your games. What if you took just 15 minutes of that time and looked up sales things and started training your mind to operate in sales? How much better, how much more ahead of the game would you be than the other people, right? And it was kind of like this aha moment for him of like, man, like if I just spent 15 minutes a day, it would add up, it'd compound, right? So that's something different. Just tweaking something a little bit, right? You're going to get a little bit better results. And the more that you tweak them things, the more results you're going to get, right?
Right.
So, I mean, there's been, I fall victim to the television every once in a while. And it's funny because I think back to like this time in my life when, it was 2015-ish. And like, I every night I would come home and I'd turn on the television and I'd sit and watch TV, and my son, he'd come and say, hey, Dad, you come tuck me in for bed. And I'd have this thought of, or I'd say it out loud of, hey, let me finish my show and I'll be right in. And I'd go in there, and what would happen? He'd already be asleep, right? That's typically what happens, because my program or show took a little bit longer than, well, it took what it took. It didn't, whatever was left was what was left, and he
took longer than he could stay awake.
Right. So I go in there, and the first thing that comes to mind is this story that I'm going to tell him in the morning about how he fell asleep too fast. Instead of owning the fact that I said the TV is more important than him. So like that hit me like a ton of bricks that night, and I had to change the way that I operated. So I mean, it's a completely you. I just I had to eliminate the television, right? Because I was more invested in their story and their plot line than what I was in my own life, which
Mhm.
happens to a lot of us inside of social media, right? I've been known to get caught in a doom scroll on the reels and watching all these funny videos, but I mean, ultimately, we have to know when to set it down and we have to know when to operate, if that
Yeah.
makes sense.
Yeah. So, a couple of things come to mind. One is, when you gave your son that advice about just spending 15 minutes, studying or not studying, but watching, videos on how to be a good salesman. So there's a wonderful book written by a fellow by the name of Jeff Colvin called Talent is Overrated.
Mm,
And in the book, he examines the lives of people who are the sort of quintessential example of who's talented. He deals with Mozart, who was supposedly this great prodigy, composing music when he was a teenager, like 11, 12 years old, whatever. And he also looks at, among others, Tiger Woods. And it's so interesting because what he shows in the book is that both of these men, the reason they had such genius ability was because from an early age, their fathers coached them in the area where they gained their great expertise. So Mozart's father was an extraordinarily gifted music teacher, and he
mm,
taught his son starting when he was either 3 or 5 years old. And Tiger Woods' father evidently was an incredibly gifted golf teacher who, again, started out his son when he was, I think, 5 years old. And by the time they were at the age when most people take up music or sports, they had spent so much time in that field. Nobody was ever going to catch them.
right.
And so they look like they're this sort of, born talent, but indeed what it was is they were willing to they had parents who were willing to coach them and teach them, and they as individuals were willing to at least spend part of their time pursuing what it was that became their life's passion. So to say that to your son, it's like you're really setting him on a path for greatness by getting him involved in something much earlier than most of us would ever think about getting involved in such a thing.
Right. And I think that, the what you're talking about with the Tiger Woods and Mozart, they were put into this container and they operated with reps, right? Consistency and reps.
Mm-hmm.
And that is the foundation of excellence, right? Is you have to be consistent and you have to get the reps. It reminds me of, in the Marine Corps, they say that everyone's a rifleman, right? Everyone
Mm-hmm.
comes out of boot camp and we're ready to fight. We're ready to be a rifleman.
Right.
And I mean, back in my day,
Right.
they have scopes now. They have the ACOG sights on there, but we iron sights at 500 yards, right?
Yeah.
We're qualifying, but the things that people don't know about that is that we sat in a squad bay for 2 weeks, dry firing that rifle into the wall, right? Going in the different positions, sitting, kneeling, standing,
Mm-hmm.
prone, right? And we're just going up and down and just click, rack, click, rack, and you're doing it for 2 weeks before you ever even take a shot on the rifle range, right? So you
Mm-hmm.
get these guys, and you're learning the ins and outs of the rifle, learning how to take it apart, disassembly and assembly. You learn how to tap, rack, bang. You got the different modes of trying to clear the rifle. And I mean, you're going through all of this stuff. So when you hit the rifle range, there's guys that had never held a gun in their lives that were on paper, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're paper right away because they're following the methodology of squeeze the trigger, right?
Mhm.
And that's the mentality that I've been able to carry with me, is that it's when you get stuck in that container, and it's rep after rep after rep, and you get to see, the Mr. Miyagi wax on, wax off, that, hey,
Yes.
this stuff does apply, right? Like, I go
Mhm.
out there and I get to hit paper and I get to operate. I mean, I came from small town Rock Springs, Wyoming, where we shot guns all the time. So it wasn't, it was what I had a bigger problem doing was breaking my habits from being younger, right? And
Mhm.
trying to operate in that way. So it was that's definitely the biggest thing that people need to understand, that consistency and reps will outdo talent any day of the week.
I mean, again, it's such a great point, because there seems to have been, over, I don't know exactly how long, last 10 years, 20 years, the idea of drilling as an effective teaching technique has just been put down. Children should follow their own, senses, or this or that. It's like, I, I have to tell you, I've never seen that work in my life. So a few months ago, I decided, as a chaplain, I was not allowed to carry any weapons. I
Mhm.
was, like, we couldn't qualify on the 9 mm, or we couldn't wear a sword at a dress ceremony, none of that stuff. And many years ago, a friend of mine gave me a sword, and it's kind of been sitting in the corner for all that time. And I looked at it one day. I said, you know what? I'm going to learn the manual at arms sword, because this friend of mine was kind enough to give me this beautiful sword, right? So I got myself my Navy sword belt, and I figured out how to put it on. And 4 or 5 times a week, I just spend, that's probably 5 to 10 minutes going through, draw sword, present sword, all the different movements, just drilling them. And what I found is, just doing that, I've gained a pretty good degree of ability with it. But also, there's something almost Zen like when I take that time to do that drill. It's like everything else, all the other problems in the world go away.
Yep.
And so there's benefits beyond just learning the skill. There's also the focus that we bring when we use a drilling technique to acquire some kind of ability, that I think is very much underappreciated in the world today, especially when we're talking about achieving excellence. So I'm curious what you think about that aspect of it.
Oh, I 100% believe in it. I mean, in the Marine Corps, we call it muscle memory, right?
Mhm.
You don't rise to your expectations; you fall to the level of your training, right?
Right.
So when you have them reps and that drill of doing the same thing over and over and over again, when your mind shuts off and you're in the heat of things, in the heat of battle, or in these moments of life where you just have to react, your
Mhm.
body will remember, and your body will fall into line and just do things without thinking, right? Seven Habits of Highly Effective People, right? He talks about, like, all these different things that we do, like driving becomes like this secondary thing that we're doing.
Mhm.
But whenever we back up, whenever you hit reverse, what do? You check the mirrors a little extra. You turn down the radio. You're
Right.
because you're operating outside of that realm, right?
Mhm.
Um, we want these automatic things to happen, and the more that we can build them reps and build that, like you said, drilling them things in, um, the better off we're going to be when things do hit the fan, when we're ready to operate. And that doesn't just apply to shooting a rifle or going to war. That applies to business and everyday business and everyday life. Like, think about it. There's this book called Crucial Conversations. Great book. It's about how to communicate properly, right? And
Mhm.
listening to understand and all these different things. And as I'm reading it, and it's because I am a Marine, it does take me a little bit to get things, so I'm a little hard headed. Uh, I have to read it. I have to listen to it, and I have to like take notes in the margin and highlight. So my books look trash when I'm done. The thing is like you have to drill them things, and you have to practice them things. So you're practicing the level of communication, practicing the listening to understand, practicing holding your tongue, right? Taking
Mhm.
like whenever my wife is talking to me now, I put my hand on my mouth just to
Mhm.
remind me to shut up. Like it's not about me in that moment, right?
Right.
Like doing them things and starting to drill and practice and operate inside of them things when the pressure's on and you and your wife are in a fight. Like who do you want to be in that fight?
Mhm.
Do you want to be the one that flies off the handle and loses control, or do you want to be the one the calm in the storm, right?
Mhm.
And I'm by no means perfect at this. My wife will tell you that I am not perfect at this, but I
Mhm.
have gotten a lot better. And she's more shocked now when I do elevate than when I don't. She tells me all the time, like you can't do that. You can't elevate because you're the steady, you're the calm, you're the one that brings us back and puts us back in the right line, and it's it's all them things. So like how do you show up inside of your relationship? How are you showing up in your body, right? Like simple things inside of your body, working out, making sure that you get the reps inside of your body. So
Mhm.
when you do have to act, when you do have to, run and catch your kid off the slide, or go out and play with your kids, like do you have the reps? Is your body equipped for it, or are you doing your family a disservice by not having them reps? And I mean, that Crucial Conversations book has set me up for a ton of success in negotiations and in conversations and in my relationship, first and foremost. Like it's changed the way that we operate as a couple. It's changed the way that I operate as the man of the house, of the family.
Yeah. Let's take a quick break and we'll continue this discussion. When life brings unexpected changes, managing inherited property shouldn't add to your stress. Magnum Properties specializes in probate and trust real estate management. We handle the complexities while you focus on what matters most. From property maintenance to tenant relations, from legal compliance to maximizing value, we're your trusted partner through every step. Magnum Properties, Inc., turning property challenges into peace of mind. Call us today at 213 264 4396 or visit magnumprops.com. So, welcome back to People Making Money. I'm Kevin Bemmel, your host, and my guest today is Deric Keller. Deric is a veteran of the Marine Corps, and he also in civilian life successful in essentially as an investment banker, I guess is probably the best way to describe what you do. Business. Working with businesses on exit strategies, acquisitions, dispositions, that sort of thing. And we're talking about how excellence is never an accident. We've talked about several aspects of that. So, Deric, I mentioned yesterday on Veterans Day, I was talking with some colleagues, and I was telling them about one particular story from when I was with the Marine Corps. I suspect this will resonate with you because I got the opportunity to do gas mask training. And it wasn't something that chaplains necessarily did, but I don't know, one of the Marines I knew said, hey, chaps, you want to come do gas mask training? And I was pretty much up for trying anything. What the heck did I know? Right? All right. So they, a group of us, they take us, they give us the gas mask, they show whatever, right? And then they take us into this chamber where they drop the gas, right? And and then they tell you, well, take your mask off. And I think to myself, wait a minute. Right? I thought the gas mask was supposed to protect us, right? So you take the mask off, I mean, you're holding your breath, you're closing your eyes, you put it back on, but there's no way to keep, the gas out of your eyes completely, right? And so then they finally let us out of this room that we're in, and the whole lot of us are lying on the grass. We've taken off our mat, and our eyes are just as red as you can imagine. We're all crying, not because we're crying, but because the pain in our eyes, right? And there all these, I mean, I was the old guy there, but all these young guys, right? We're all just laying there, crying together, basically, right? And I mean, it was hilarious. Of course, it was a bonding experience for us to have gone through that together. But one of the things that struck me about it is essentially what the Marine Corps asked us to do was voluntarily suffer some pain so that we would, obviously not in my case, I was a chaplain, but so that they would be better Marines, they would be better prepared, to deal with this kind of situation. And again, I think that oftentimes people's lives become the, absolute avoidance of any pain and the seeking of, whatever is pleasing or pleasurable. And I'd love to hear your take on this, but that seems to me to be not a path for growth and achieving excellence.
No, definitely not. I giggle to myself a little bit when you talk about the gas masks, because we were the bright ones that decided to take, go to the gas chamber with one mask. So 6 of us, one mask, and we were doing what we called buddy breathing, right? You had to pass the gas mask, and you definitely didn't want to leave your buddies hanging, right? Because they're sitting there holding their breath. Right. So you're going around and passing the gas mask. That was miserable. But yeah, absolutely. Like, doing hard things is what helps set us up for the other hard things that happen inside of our lives, right? There's going to be hard things. Things are going to happen. People are going to pass away. The business deal isn't going to go through. The hard conversation that you have to have with your wife, like, all these things tend to happen. Things are always going to come up, especially having kids, right? There's always the hard conversations with the kids. But what I've found is that when I put myself under pressure and challenge myself inside of things, I'm constantly out trying to do some sort of a physical challenge to kind of break myself down and show myself that I could do things. And I think that achieving them things helps set me up for success in many other things, because I've constantly got that challenge and growth mindset. So how can I change the way that I operate? Well, I start small, right? I start with myself, with my body, and do a hard physical challenge, whether it's, doing the Grand Canyon rim to rim to rim and 48 miles in less than 24 hours, or flying over to Scotland and doing the 60 miles over there, or, I'm constantly trying to put my body under pressure. And maybe your Grand Canyon is running to the stop sign. I don't know. But getting out and doing something out of your comfort zone, jumping in cold plunges, doing these different things to challenge your mind. Everything that your mind says that you can't do, go challenge it. There's this book that I read a long time ago that when I first started my entrepreneurial journey, it was called The Big Leap. And it's got this little goldfish in a little fish bowl, and it's jumping into the big fish bowl. And in there, he talks about the flea circus. And limiting beliefs is what the whole book's about, is like, what limiting beliefs have been put on us and what limiting beliefs do we have? And he talks about the flea circus, and the way that they train the flea circus is they put them in a tub and they put the lid on the tub, and the fleas hit the roof of the tub multiple times until they don't, and then they stop, and they never jump any higher than that lid again.
Right.
so they can take the lid off and put these fleas in the flea circus and allow them to jump around without a roof. And the funny thing is that their kids will never jump any higher than that roof. Like for generational, even though they have the capability to jump so much higher, they're limited by that lid. And so now every time that I'm telling myself that I can't do something, I revert back to that story, and I'm like, I'm not a flea. Like I'm not gonna allow myself to put a lid on me. I'm not gonna allow other people to put a lid on me. And oftentimes in our lives, through our family's limiting beliefs, our own limiting beliefs, they're constantly building this box around us, telling us what we can and can't do. And maybe we've done it to ourselves to the extent of our eating habits and the way that we're showing up, and maybe that stop sign, running to the stop sign, is that big adventure, something that's going to be big and break us out of our shell. But it's getting started, breaking through that thing, jumping in that cold plunge, doing that thing that's out of norm. I'll give you one more. I was up. I do this hike on South Mountain in Arizona. I try to do it every Saturday. And one Saturday because I come up one side of the mountain, go over and come down the other side, and then I come back up. And of course back down to my truck. But I'm coming down this big steep part of this mountain, and I see this guy sitting there. He's not a guy that you normally see on the mountain. He was probably about 350 pounds.
Wow.
And he was sitting on the ledge, and I was like, "Hey man, how's it going? Great day." I'm just in that type of mood when I'm out there hiking. And he's like, "Oh man, I'm exhausted. I've got to go back down." And I was like, "No man, like you can't go back down. Like you're literally, if you just turn around, you're 100 feet from the top." And he's like, I just can't do it. I'm going to put myself in danger. I'm going to put other people in danger. I just can't do it. I just got to go back down. I said, I tell you what, you sit here, you rest up. I'm going to run down to the bottom. And when I come back up, it'll be about 30, 45 minutes. When I'm coming back up, I'll walk with you back up to the top, and I'll walk you back down. He goes, "Oh, okay, I'll do that." So I get down to the bottom, and I'm coming back up, and about halfway back up, he's coming down. And I was like, "All right, man, you went up by yourself. You did it." And he says, "You know what? I got to be honest with you. No, I didn't." And I was like, "Okay, well, what made you decide to come down?" He goes, "I don't know. I just felt like I needed to come down." And I said, "Well, I got to tell you, I wanted to tell him all the reasons why he should have went to the top. But I knew in this moment, this guy was already feeling defeated. So I needed to give him something else." And I said, "You know what? Think about this. How many other people your size are out here on this mountain? None. You're the only one. So you're already breaking out of your shell, right? You're already doing something different. You're already in that 1%. You're already building." And I said, here's the other thing. You could have 100% lied to me, and I'd have never known the difference. And you told the truth. That puts you in another 1%. You told the truth, and you're out here doing it. So I expect to see you out here next weekend. And it's been about a year and a half since that happened, and he's probably around 220 pounds now. He's out there every Saturday. I see him hiking that mountain, and it's incredible to see people that will step outside of their comfort zone and build them reps and do them things. Because if you can do that, if you can just step outside of your comfort zone and do one thing, it can change everything for you.
What you're saying, I mean, it so resonates. I know when I first started in business, I had a real estate company. I may have told this story before on this show, but when you're dealing in real estate, the bottom line is I was looking to work with people who had money, preferably a lot of money, because that meant they had a lot of real estate, right? And it was a weird situation because I would go and make a presentation to a potential client. And in the back of my mind, I'm thinking to myself, why am I talking to this, snotty, wealthy person? Right. And the fact of the matter is, none of these people were snotty. That fortunately they were wealthy. And I was like, and one day I started thinking to myself, where does this come from? Like, why do I have such a bad attitude toward the very people that will mean the difference between success or failure of my business, right?
Mhm.
And it occurred to me that throughout my life, both my parents kind of had this negative attitude toward people who are wealthy. And they would say things like, well, wealthy people, they all cheated to get there,
Mm.
right? And it had just permeated me, as a child, not through anything other than just that was the atmosphere in which I grew up. When I came to that realization, I said to myself, well, okay, is that idea true? And by then I had a few clients, and I was from time to time invited to different events where there were a lot of wealthy people there. A lot of these were charitable events. People are making like huge donations to charity. And when I say huge, 5 and 6 figure contributions to charity. I'm like, well, that certainly doesn't sound like a horrible person to me, And I realized the belief was a false belief, but that I was operating under it was holding me back. And so then the next step, of course, was, okay, how do I sort of get rid of that belief, break through, as you were like the cover on the tub, right?
Mhm.
And honestly, it wasn't so easy. Um, but it's like every day I had to remind myself, yes, there are people who are bad people who are wealthy, but there are people who are bad people who are not wealthy. It's the
Right.
wealth has nothing to do with it. It's the individual, right? And so I think, and it's a hard thing to confront because I loved my mom. My father is deceased. I loved my father. But our parents aren't perfect. They make
Right.
mistakes, right? And part of our job as children, both children and adult children, is to correct the mistakes that our parents made when they raised us and not live within those limitations that have been created. And by the way, I don't think my parents intended to, hold me back or anything. It was just, that was just kind of how they looked at life or whatever. And so but it's a hard thing to do, and it's, again, it's not without pain. It's in
Right.
this case emotional pain, right? That we have to, in some cases, kind of reject a part of our upbringing if we're going to take ourselves to the next level.
No, absolutely. Yeah, I 100% agree with that. There's so many different limiting beliefs and different stories that we don't even realize are in our subconscious from people saying things in passing, from teachers, from parents, from grandparents, right? Like it's wild how many different things will definitely limit us from moving to another area, all because we were telling ourselves this story.
So maybe I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit, but what what can you recommend for someone? Because I think the hardest thing is to be bumping up against one of those beliefs and not
Hmm.
realizing it. And what do you recommend for, I don't know, taking kind of an inventory of ourselves to perhaps discover some of these limiting beliefs before they have an opportunity to sort of sabotage us, if that makes sense?
Yeah, I mean, usually you're not going to notice them until they do, um, but ultimately, I mean, the biggest thing is taking that inventory, taking the time to take that inventory. I mean, every year I sit down before the end of the year and I go through these series of questions and I put myself in that scenario of like, what are my limiting beliefs? What's holding me back? What are the big things that I want to do that I'm just not getting done?
Mhm.
And really hone in that foundation of how I'm operating. And then I make a plan of attack to go attack the next year in a different way. Right. So I think that that's probably the best thing that you could do is if you're not doing it monthly or quarterly, at least do it yearly. Is come in every year and just take some time to yourself and really take a hard look and a hard inventory on how you're operating and ultimately what are the stories that are holding you back. There's a Bedros Koulian talks about, I think he calls it the Muskogee or something like that. It's an ancient thing where they would go out and, they'd spend 24 hours out in the wilderness or whatever. And I like to do something like that. I like to go out and challenge myself and put myself under pressure and really break down my ego, because my ego really, really gets in the way on some things. And when you're tired, when you're exhausted, that ego kind of isn't there. So you go out and you kind of break yourself down physically so that when you sit down, you can just be 100% open and transparent and run through some things. And I actually run an event in December every year that people could come to, where I run you through a process and we find foundation, we set new targets for the new year, and we go and attack and hold you accountable for the whole year.
So here's another, again, maybe kind of a difficult question. So, and it kind of goes back to the fellow you were talking about who was walking on the mountain with you.
Mm-hmm.
How do we determine the point at which we've pushed hard enough, and to push harder actually is more likely to set us back? And I'm thinking perhaps it's more obvious in a physical realm where the fact of the matter is I am just not as fast, agile, resilient today at 65 as
Right.
I was at 35. That I don't like it that it's that way, but that's the cold hard truth, to to borrow a phrase from one of my favorite country songs, right?
Right.
I'm not as good as I once was, right?
Right.
Right?
But I'm good once as
But I'm as good once as I ever was, right? So, and because I honestly, I struggle with this. There are sometimes I feel like keep pushing. Like I ride my bike every Sunday down to the beach. There's this particular bike path, and I'm trying to get to the point where I can do this ride in a certain time period, and I've been pushing and I don't seem to be able to get beyond. And there are times when I feel like if I go any harder, I'm going to injure myself, and then I've got to step back and all of that. So how do we calibrate that?
Yeah. So, I mean, one, I'm not a doctor, so we're going to put that disclaimer out there.
Yeah.
I'm not giving medical advice. But two, there's, I mean, when you look at this, like a lot of times, like with your situation in particular, you're probably plateauing, right? You're probably overtraining in that area. So you need to switch up your training and do something else, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like whether it's running, bike, or maybe rower or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
But getting into something else to allow your body to kind of reset and recover, and then you'll boost again. And then a lot of times our mind is telling us that we're done when we're not done.
Mm-hmm.
Right. We learn that a lot in the Marine Corps. Boot camp, for instance, when they run us through the crucible, right? They're sleep deprivation, food deprivation, and they're running you ragged. And then you get to the top of this mountain. I'm not going to say the name of the mountain because it's inappropriate, but you go to the top of this straight up and down mountain, and when you get to the top, as soon as you get to the top, then you go through a shooting range, a shoot and move range, and then you go through pugil sticks, and you're fighting, right? You're fighting other guys, and you're like, they're when you think that you're completely exhausted and think that you have nothing left, 9 times out of 10, you're only 40% there. You have so much more left in the tank. Your mind is tricking you and trying to shut down on you, and if you can just, every time that you break past that small barrier, even if you just break past it a little bit, you tell your mind that it's not in control, right? Like we've got people often fall victim to their mind, right? And the stories that they're telling themselves, they're like, well, I can't control my mind. Yes, you can. It's yours, right? It's yours. You just have to challenge it back. And the problem is that your mind knows you better than you do, right? But the caveat to that, you know your mind better than it does, right? So you know how to break through. You know how to you know how to trick it to do something else, right?
So, oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, I was just going to say, just continue to challenge yourself in all these different areas. Like, and Kevin, it might be also some recovery, right? You might be just overtrained and need some recovery, and you'll come back even stronger. But there's so many times that we can just break through things by doing something else hard. That cold plunge that nobody wants to do, jump in that ice bath and it's miserable, like becomes that thing that tricks your mind and says, you know what, it's telling me it's cold, telling me not to get in there, it's dangerous, don't do it, it hurts, it and I did it, and I came out and I was okay. Now all of a sudden I'm training my mind in a different way.
Yeah. I mean, I do something like that. So on Saturdays, which is the Jewish Sabbath, so not permitted to use to turn on the hot water taps, right? So if I go and do, like, I'll go for a long hard walk. Unfortunately, I can't run anymore. My knees are just too shot, right? But I'll go on a 10-kilometer walk, and I'm coming back, I'm sweaty, whatever, and so I need to rinse off, and so I'm taking that ice cold shower, and it's the same every time. I'm standing there like, okay, I'm gonna turn on the water, I'm gonna jump underneath it, rinse myself off and get out of as fast as I can. And it's like the initial hit of that cold water, it's so freezing, but you know what, within about 10 or 15 seconds, it's not nearly as cold,
Right.
as it is up in my head, right? It's so funny, and I think maybe because I only do it once a week, but it's so funny how the mind works. Like I'm like staring down my shower head, like, here I come again. Right? I'm gonna fool you this time, right? But it's just never stays as cold as I think it is in my mind, right? So these are, I don't know how many more times it's going to take me to do this before I can just walk under that water and not care, one way or the other. But
part of that is that you're turning the shower on and letting it run, and you're looking at the water. Jump in and just turn it on. Just be under it.
Okay. So you think I should turn it on and then like, because normally when I turn on the shower, like I turn on the hot water, whatever, and by the time I walk in, it's like, yeah, it's perfect, comfortable thing, right?
Yeah. So break that pattern, stand in the shower before you ever turn it on and just flip it on. And then it just hits you right away and you don't have time to really think about it.
There you go. Okay. Okay. I'll give that a try on Saturday. Oh, well, so we're kind of coming up on our time here, but wanted to just give you a couple of minutes, if you would, to sort of sum up for us how do we sort of take in hand our pursuit of excellence? For people who haven't maybe ever done this before or haven't really thought about it in an intentional way before, how can someone start making this a part of their business life, their professional life, their personal life, their their physical, emotional life.
Yeah, I mean, do it by just doing one thing, right? It all starts with one thing. Pick one thing that you want to change and just do something out of your comfort zone in that area, whether it's that hard conversation, whether it's the jumping in the cold shower, whether it's climbing that mountain, running to the stop sign, uh, making that phone call to get that sale. Like getting outside of your comfort zone is 100% the only way that you're going to continue to grow and achieve.
Very good. Well, Deric, I really appreciate you coming on the show today. It was a great conversation.
Oh,
It's a topic that I always come back to it. I think it's just a very central topic to living the kind of life that I think most people want to live.
yes. Yeah, it's like Jocko says. He says discipline equals freedom, right?
Mhm.
And like when you think about that, like so many people get so caught up in oh, you live this regimented life and da 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 da, and you can't go do anything, and you can't, like, I don't drink, right?
Mhm.
And that people are like, well, you can't drink because you're doing this or doing that, and I'm like, well, no, I don't want to drink. I choose not to drink. It's going to set me back in training. It's going to set me back in doing these other things, and it's a bottle of bad decisions anyway. But ultimately, it's like the discipline does equal freedom. When you're disciplined in things, you can do so much more. It's crazy.
This is, I think, one of the great mistakes of our society is this attitude that somehow living a disciplined life is living a restricted life. It is really exactly the opposite, like as you were just saying. When we have more control over what otherwise would just be kind of our natural inclinations, then we truly do have the freedom to be the person that we really want to be, not the person we're driven to be by all of these external influences under which we've grown up, and all of the vicissitudes that hit us on any given day. They're going to push and pull us to do, to react, and if we have discipline, self-discipline, we can choose how to respond. And I to me that is that is a core distinction between a boy and a man. For example, a boy will react, a man will develop the self-discipline to respond.
Absolutely.
Very good.
Love it.
Well, Darren, yeah, thanks so much for coming on the show today. If you'll hang tight for just a minute, I'm going to do a quick wrap up and then we can talk offline for a minute.
Okay.
So thank you so much for joining us today. This I don't say this very often, but I think I've said this in Deric's other show as well. Take the time to watch this show again and listen again to what Deric recommends. It is so cogent, it's so powerful. And while Deric attributes it to having been a Marine and needing, the repetition and all of that, the fact of the matter is we all need that repetition. And because that's really what will embedded in us and really make the change a part of us. So take a look at this again. Recommend it to a family member or a friend who maybe is struggling with something in their life that they really want to change. Maybe they're struggling with losing weight, or they've hit this problem in their business or professional life and they need to break through it. And I think Deric's advice is it's deceptively simple. What needs to be done is simple. Of course, the doing it is the hard part, and that's where choosing one thing and working on it, seeing how the process works that time, then you can build on that. So if you have any thoughts, comments, criticisms, All the links to social media will be in the show notes. We'd love to hear what you have to say. I'll put Deric's contact information in the show notes as well if you want to get in touch with Deric to learn about the program he does. You say you do it in December, did you say?
Yep, December 11th through the 14th.
Okay, so if you want to get in touch with Deric about the program that he runs, I'm sure he'd love to talk to you about it. I'm putting him on the spot yet again, countless times this show. Let's see, this is my last show for this week. Next week we'll be back with the full slate of shows, all at 10 a.m. Pacific time. Trust and Estates Weekly on Monday, Business Lessons from the Military on Tuesday. The next edition of People Making Money on Wednesday. And then next week on Thursday at 5 p.m. Pacific time is my every other week show, Jiggers' Place, where we'll sit back and have a cocktail. Maybe I should make it a non-alcoholic cocktail in your honor, Deric. But we'll sit back and have a cocktail and a schmooze, talk about all of the non-financial aspects of life. So, Deric, once again, thank you so much for being on the show today. Always a pleasure to talk with you. And that just leaves me to sign off. Marie, darling, you are my